All right, guys, welcome back to the next episode of the Grand Prairie PD podcast. I'm your host for today, Nate.
Emily.
And we are here today with Jeremy.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jeremy.
Jeremy is what we call in the biz a big wig.
A big
I would
wig.
say.
Big deal.
Not the biggest wig, but just
Big deal.
maybe a wig.
We were having a really cool conversation just now, and we'll kind of rehash some of it.
Yeah.
I got the calendar invite for you, and it said FBI and then your name, and I was like, cool. I'm not going to Google. I'm not going to get into it. I'm like, I'm going to go in completely fresh. And like
Love
you
it.
were just talking about how
Yeah.
you had local law enforcement experience before you went to
Yes.
the FBI. So I hate to rewind, but I'm going to rewind just
sure.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Municipal law enforcement first. Where were you?
Yeah, so I was at a sheriff's office. So I was born and raised in Kentucky. And so in Lexington, Kentucky is where I ended up starting my law enforcement career with the Fayette County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Okay. That's I guess the FBI is probably how you went up here.
Well, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. How different is Kentucky from here?
The privilege of being the FBI has offered a lot of opportunity to be able to experience other things. I'm learning that everywhere's a little different.
Sure.
Even there's similarities are there, but there's differences. Well, first off, it gets hot in Kentucky, but this is like, I don't know, surface of the sun.
That sucks, dude.
Yeah, dude. Like what? Like I showed up last year, and I think I got here in June, and then we had like 40 days of over 100 degrees. And I'm like, what did we do?
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. So obviously the climate is a little different, but more than that, I think it's just the amount of people.
Okay.
I mean, you have, I don't know, over twice as many people in DFW than you do in the whole state of Kentucky.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, if you think about that. I mean, I think we have four. Now, someone can fact check it, but I believe there's about 4 million, maybe slightly over, unless it's grown, people in the whole state of Kentucky.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I think you guys have 29 million in Texas or something,
Yeah.
30 million in Texas, something like that.
Wow.
And in DFW, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So, and you think about that, in really a radius of 100 miles or whatever,
Right.
you have more people than an entire state.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is turning into like a little LA.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it is.
I'll say that.
It is. As much as you want to be in denial about it, buddy, you're about to be in a little
Say
LA.
like little Houston. And then we'll work up to LA.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's not necessarily the best either.
Yeah.
Terrible sports teams. I know.
Yeah. Well,
Live in
I'm
denial if that makes you happy.
I will.
Okay, I'll support
well,
that.
I've been a Bengals fan my whole life, so I've endured the bad times to enjoy some good times. So, but my son, he decided last year he was going to be a Cowboys fan.
Of course you did.
And so I just said, hey, I love it. Great history, great. There's just there's a lot of legacy there. It's like, but you got to go all in if you're going all in, buddy.
He'll learn humility.
He did quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you were like, you
It's a
have
good-
to get a criminal record.
I wasn't going to go there, but no, he he learned quickly a disappointment because he was like, oh man, they're going to be great, and I'm like, yeah, I think every year they're going to be great, and so after the Green
So do
Bay
we.
game, he was like, and I said, it's okay, bud, just you got to go all in though. Like I said, I've been a Bengals fan through all of it,
Yeah.
so and a Reds fan too, and that's been challenging
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. So. So he's a Rangers fan now. He's
That's
a
safer.
Cowboys fan.
That's awesome.
And so I do love that about this adventure of the FBI is that my family gets to experience all the different things. And so he's picked up a little bit everywhere that we've been. And he was 3 when I went to the FBI Academy. So he's kind of been in it through the whole time. We have 2 other boys now that that were born while we were in Alabama. But I think that's the cool part is
Yeah.
that he's getting to experience a lot more than what I would have or what he would have if we'd have stayed there.
Right.
So you went into the academy. What year was it? About?
2012.
2012. Okay, gotcha. What was that transition like from local law enforcement to being in the academy? Like, did you grow up having that drive to
Yeah.
aim for that, or was that just something that kind of developed?
Growing up, so I grew up in Appalachia, right? Which, by the way, is
Come
how
again?
you say it. It's
Appalachia?
Not Appalachia.
Oh.
People tell me
I
I'm
was gonna say
saying
here
it
it's
wrong.
Appalachia.
Well, because you say it wrong, right? Yeah. And so I tell people, and they're
But
like,
we're
oh,
from Texas. I got an
Yeah.
argument with a guy about his own last name. I was like,
Yeah.
no. This is
Yeah. Well, someone told me one time, I was like,
That
you're
tracks.
saying,
That
you're
tracks.
saying that wrong. And I was like, well, if everybody that grew up there or is from there says it this way, then
Yeah.
who's really saying it wrong?
Right.
And so Appalachia, right? The
Appalachia.
Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
In eastern Kentucky, very rural area, very small area, working class family.
Does it live up
So-
to its reputation? Because I hear that, obviously, my
Yeah.
mind goes to the most extreme, like, reality show that's ever
Mine
been.
goes to
It's-
Clarice Starling.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but it's I would say you're going to find that,
Sure.
but not it's not the majority
Gotcha,
of folks.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely found that there are that stereotype people everywhere in every state I've
Yeah.
ever
That's
been.
true.
Yeah.
Right, Texas, Maryland, New York, everywhere that I've
Really?
been. Yeah. So yeah, you're going to find that. I mean, but growing up there, I mean, it's just a different experience, and so you, I don't know, it creates. I'm going to say this because if you meet somebody else from that area, you're probably going to find the same thing. There's a certain sense of like servant leadership with people because you want to help the other person.
Right.
So you're trying to constantly help people and you take up for people and you know you hear the jokes, you hear all this stuff, and so you kind of develop this this mindset that you want to be a better person and help people, right? And I've met that throughout the FBI. There's been many other people from Kentucky and from the area that I'm from, and we're all very similar. So it's not everybody, but I think it's just a large group of people. So I always had the desire to want to help people, like taking up for a kid at school or whatever, and that just kind of manifested into, well, why wouldn't I do that like professionally, right? And so law enforcement was always a draw to me. I'll be honest, my early days of wanting to get into law enforcement, all I wanted to do was get in the Kentucky State Police.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because that was the representation of like the hero,
Right.
you know. Because when you grow up in a rural area like that, you don't, you know, there's one other police department,
Sure.
sheriff's office, and that's it. And they're so small they don't even come out. So the state police in Kentucky was really the main show, right? So I always wanted to do that. So to do that, you had to get like 60 hours of college credits, be 18 or whatever, and apply. And so that was my goal. I'm going to do this. And then over time, I just started to really evaluate it and think, man, you know, am I selling myself a little short? Not that the state police isn't amazing, but that I should get a degree. I should keep going, right? And then I have one older brother, and he decided he wanted to go to medical school, and so he got accepted into University of Kentucky Medical School.
Awesome.
To be a medical doctor, and it was pretty inspiring, to be honest with you. And so I thought, man, two things. I'm really impressed. I'm really inspired by him to do that because at that point, my mother was the only one that had any kind of college degree, and it was an associate's degree in horticulture, which is a big deal. But none of my family, I have a very, very big extended family, which I can mention too, had ever gone to college. And so it was a big deal. Medical school is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
heck
like
of a start.
It's huge. And so I thought, wow, man, he's going to be really, really accomplished. I'm never going to hear the end of this.
Right.
Level up.
I need to level up.
I love
I need
it.
to do something.
Good job.
Yeah.
Turn, look in the mirror. Crap.
Yeah, I mean, state police would have been, and it is still an amazing organization, and I still have friends there, and they're wonderful. But I'm like, I need to get my degree. So I decided to go ahead and get my degree, and then it was like, you know what? I've always had the FBI in the back of my mind, but it was always one of those things. And when I do recruiting fairs, I always talk about this. Like, you always think something, I'd love to do that, but then you talk yourself out of it. I'm not good enough to do that. Why would they want me? What do I have to offer? And so you kind of turn yourself down before the organization ever turns you down. And I'm sure that's true.
You put the organization on such a pedestal.
It is.
I mean, you're like, this is
Why would they want me?
the epicenter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're so good. Surely there's something I'm not seeing in myself that
Right.
I'm gonna.
And so over that kind of development time, finishing high school and getting into college, I kind of really started to have an honest reflection of myself. And I'm like, you know what? Why not me?
Yep.
Well, I can offer a lot. I mean, the only foreign language at that time that I could speak was redneck,
Right.
which the FBI did not recognize. I tried a foreign language. Yes, well, an Appalachian redneck, and they're like, nah.
Yep.
But it is a language. I'm
It's a
promise
dialect
you.
for sure.
And it's, at least I can speak from local law enforcement perspective, it's useful.
It's very useful.
You walk in, no one's listening to you, you
Thank
pull
you.
a little bit out of your back pocket, and you're like,
I have a tendency to connect with a lot of different folks because I understand what they need from me to be able to trust me, right?
Yep.
And it's not fake. It's like I understand. I'm going to show you that I'm who I
Right.
say, right? So that's all I had, and I thought, okay, well, I need to get a master's degree, right? Because I wanted to set myself apart. And so my he was in medical school now, and I'm like, I can do this. I'm like, he's really smart. And I was like, but I'm pretty smart too. So I went through and pushed myself through. Got my master's degree, ended up moving from Eastern Kentucky into Lexington, and within a year or so, I got on with the sheriff's office. Very unique position.
So let me ask you this: you've already decided, are you aiming for the FBI at this point, and you join the sheriff's department?
So when I decided not to go toward the state police, I'd already decided the FBI was my goal.
Okay.
The interview that I had with the sheriff probably isn't the best approach, but it worked.
Okay.
I'm very honest. And so when I was interviewing with her, because she called me and said, "Hey, I see your resume you're putting in. Like, I want to talk to you." I was like, "Well, this is awesome, right?" And so I was in the hiring process for the Lexington Police Department, and then she called. And that process is just very, I don't know, it just took a long time. And then when new folks got in, they got re-ranked, and so you kept getting bumped for military preference or stuff like that, which I didn't have any, so I kept getting bumped down. Right. So she called, and we talked, and I said, "I want to be very honest with you." I said, "I'm really interested in a job with you." It wasn't for a deputy sheriff. It was for like court security. It was like the person at the front door of the courthouse,
Okay,
right, that does the screening and stuff like that. And I was like, "That's really all I'm interested in." I said, "I want to do this. I want to learn some more, but I want to get my work experience I need to apply for the FBI." Right, and I was at 25 years old at this point, which is a bad strategy if you're trying to get a job, is to say, "Hey, I don't really want to be here that long," right?
Depends on how bad staffing is.
Yeah, for sure.
You didn't know that, but you know, fortunately for me, I think I tend to be very honest and hopefully a positive way, not a negative. You know, some people are like, "I'm just honest," but really they're just rude, right? Yeah, it's like shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
So I think that created a very genuine relationship between me and her. And she really valued that, and she's like, "Hey, you know what? I want you." She's like, "But I think there's more here for you than that," right? So she played it really well. Right? And so anyway, so I got hired onto that in like August of 2003.
Okay.
Cool.
And so the rest of that year, she was constantly talking to me about, "Hey, we have a spot in the academy. We have a spot in the academy. You really should do this. I think you'd be really good at it. It'll help you. You know, it'll help you get where you want to go." And so. I was still single, didn't have any kids or anything, and so I was like, "Yeah, why don't I do that? I should do that." Yeah. So I went to the police academy in January of 2004. It was 16 weeks in Kentucky. It was like the state. So state police has their own academy. Louisville Metro Police and Lexington Police had their own academies.
Okay.
But everybody else went to this kind of the state-run academy, right? So I went there and got through that, and then started my career as a deputy sheriff, and just fell in love with the service of it.
Yep.
And for me, and you guys know what I'm talking about, it's not about power and control. It's not about look at me. It's about how can I help you? And so that was really addicting to me is the ability to walk in a neighborhood and people see me and think that I'm going to be something.
Right.
And then when they interact with me, I'm not. And it changes that perspective, at least momentarily, right? And so that was pretty addicting. So I did that. It was 2004 at that point. Ended up meeting my future wife in 2005. And so then the first thing I told her was when we met and started a relationship was like, "Hey, you know, I'm not going to be here. Like you have to understand, like this is what I really want to do." And we talked about it, and she was like, "Man, that sounds amazing." And so eventually we get married and start our family, and the clock's ticking because you have to get in by the time you're 37.
Okay.
Unless you have some military time that you can actually kind of buy back, it's 37, right? Just say generally 37 for everybody except for a few. 2010, I had set that as my goal. I was like, "Hey, by 2010, I have to decide: are we rolling with this, or am I going to really try to do what I've always wanted to do?" And that was a really tough decision because at that point I was a captain at the sheriff's office.
Oh wow!
I had moved my way up. Just I tell people it's just through hard work, a good reputation, being responsible. Look, if the boss needs something done and they can depend on you to do it and do it the way they want it done, you're gonna do pretty well.
Yeah.
And you're gonna represent them well out there. And so I was able to do that. And so I was in line to do some really big things at the sheriff's office, and I knew that. And she had told me that over time. And so it was tough. It was like, okay, do I give up? And by this time I'd had almost 9 years in, so halfway through their career. Right? Do I just cash that in and give it all up and start over? Or do we just stay there and we do what I loved to do? But the draw of the magnitude of what I could do in the FBI was too big.
Yeah.
Well, it's an unknown too, because even now I don't.
Yeah.
Like I have a very good friend of mine who I work with. We worked together at our last department. Then here, he went to the FBI for a little bit.
Yeah.
And even talking to him, like I don't really 100% know like what a day-to-day life in the FBI would look like. So to go from a sheriff's department in Kentucky, where you're secure. I enjoy going to work to go do this.
It was intimidating.
Yeah, mystery thing.
Which again is kind of one of those embarrassing things to say because I don't really get intimidated, but that was intimidating. And
it should be. It shows the gravity.
Right.
And you're basically pushing all your chips to the center of the table, and you're saying, you know what? I think I'm good enough. I'm going to go do this. But in that sense, you do damage relationships because now I'm telling this organization that has invested in me for years, hey guys, I want to go do this. And so it does damage relationships for a while. I still have a great relationship with everybody at that sheriff's office and the sheriff and stuff. But I think it damaged it for a while, right? I think there was some hurt feelings, and I understand that.
It's also the benefit of, like you said, being honest in an
upfront.
appropriate way up front, even though it may not be the easiest conversation to have.
The conversation where I was like, hey, I'm doing this, it was like, remember 10 years ago, right? And I said this. And so, but it was pretty scary because, at that point, my wife, we had our oldest son, and I'm basically saying, hey, I'm willing to risk all this.
It's huge.
Because it's no guarantee that she would take me back, right? Could you get on somewhere else? Sure, but you're starting all over, not where you want to be. And so I had to do that, and it was just the preparation was, I wasn't in the best shape because you guys know in local law enforcement, it's not like we're the healthiest folks in the world. No. You sit a lot, you eat a lot, it's very sedentary in a lot of ways, and I was that. And at that point, I was part of the command staff, so I was even less active than I was early on. And so I had to really work hard just to meet the physical standards, right? And so I was working my tail off to do that all the time, still working, still trying to be a dad, still trying to be a husband to the best of my ability. And it was super stressful, but I would say very rewarding at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I wish I'd done it sooner, actually. Really? Looking back on it,
So real quick, what did you get your master's in? I'm just curious.
So I went to Morehead State University, which is a state school in Eastern Kentucky. So I majored in sociology.
Oh, cool.
All right, concentration.
Social worker. Yeah, my guy.
Cool. Social workers are some of our best allies out there for a lot of stuff that we work now. But and a concentration in criminology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
criminology is really kind of where I was wanting to be, just because. If you think about it, like sociology is the study of science, like social science, like why did that person do that? This person doesn't do that. You can look internally and like psychology of it, or you can look in the social environment. And then the criminology just brings the crime element to it. Like, okay, that was a behavior, a criminal behavior. Well, why did he do it? Why didn't you do it? And you guys kind of have a similar social circle, right? And so I found it to be very intriguing. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, my goal at that time when I was in grad school was to get into BAU.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what I always wanted to do, the profiler and all that stuff.
So cool.
Gotcha.
Yeah, behavioral analysis unit. It's all I ever wanted to do. So it's kind of ironic that I've had opportunities to pursue that in my career and I didn't do it. Because once you get in the FBI, you realize, wow, there's so many opportunities. To diversify yourself across the board that you almost reevaluate it all the time.
Sure.
What do I want to pursue? How do I want to do it? Wow, this opportunity's here. I didn't realize it would be there. Let me go do that.
So how does that work? So you go through the academy. It's however many weeks, months.
So when I went, it was 20.
Okay.
I think now it's 18.
18.
And I think they're trying to get it down to 16.
They're going down.
They're trying to.
Wow.
Oh, no, yeah. I was 20 and a half weeks when I went through.
Wow.
Okay.
Seems like the trend among at least local municipalities tends to be to go the opposite direction.
Yeah, well, for us, I think we're trying to realize that we can accomplish the things we want to accomplish maybe in a more compact way. Plus,
Are you mixing government and efficiency?
Well, it doesn't. It's logic, and I've been told. I was a new agent in Montgomery, Alabama, and I've always had a very positive outlook. I think even now, I think people would probably. They give me a little grief because I'm a little too positive. Like, oh yeah, you're too positive. And
I'm not Monday in the elevator. I'm like, stop.
Yes, that's me. Well, now I look at the guy like, bro, Monday, right? Yeah. But I forget what it was. We were talking about something, and I'm like, no. I was like, that doesn't make sense. I was like, what? Surely they're going to do this.
Yeah.
And one of the old hats stood up, and he announced to the whole office. He was like, hey guys. Listen to the new guy. He's optimistic. He's speaking logically. He's like, he'll learn. And so over time, I've gotten that government and logic decisions don't always make sense, and so you kind of roll with it. And I think it's on every level too, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's magnified with us, I think, but on every level, it's like, why why wouldn't we just do this? And
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
So when you were in the academy, how did that work with your family? Did they stay back in Kentucky or that's tough?
It was really tough. I mean, I'd already done 16 weeks residential, but I didn't have a family at that point. So it was almost like okay, I'm going to go do this. This is my job, and I'm going to come back. And that's how it was for a lot of my classmates who were single, didn't have a family, right? They just gave up the lease on their apartment, put their stuff in storage, and came. And so they were like, they were living their life. I mean, it was still hard, don't get me wrong, but they didn't have the same stressors, right? They didn't have a mortgage or a lease or something they were still paying for, while here, your family is dealing with things, sickness, illness, whatever, while you're gone. My wife was still working at the time, so it was really challenging. And emotionally, for me and my classmates that had little kids and stuff, it was really tough. Because it was quite a ways away. I was in Lexington, Kentucky at the time, 9 hours, eight or 9 hours away. So you didn't just pick up and come home.
I was going to say, because being from Texas,
Yeah.
the geography east of us means nothing.
Yeah, so. I've learned that. I've learned. I've had to. It's not just Texas, by the way. There are parts in northern Kentucky where I just came from where there's like 3 counties called northern Kentucky, and it's the Cincinnati suburban area, right? Because I ran our little office right there before coming here, and the folks from those 3 counties didn't know anything below those 3 counties.
Oh,
Literally,
wow.
There's 120 counties in Kentucky, and they only knew 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, so we had a big map, and I'd walk them over. There's a couple of my TFOs, which I love. Our TFOs, by the way, are like I love.
Yeah.
Because
Task force officers?
yeah. It keeps me connected with who I am, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that. And it's like we get each other and stuff. And so this one of my guys, man, I was like, bro, come here. So we looked at the map, and I was like, what do you see? He goes, Northern Kentucky. And I was like, what do you see below that? And he goes, avoid. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm like, it
doesn't matter.
It's everywhere else, dude.
Yeah.
You know. And so we joked about it over time, but it's very similar to that. But yeah, this means nothing in the state of Texas because I think El Paso's like 9 hours away, right? I mean, you can't even get out of the state unless you're driving, right? But in every other normal sized state except for the ginormous
And you forget
Texas,
that because I was always you hear about the northeastern area and New York and Baltimore and Philadelphia.
Dude, it's the size of 4 of your counties.
Yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
insane. I went up to New York one time and this is gonna sound bad, but it's okay. I'm the uneducated person.
You're good.
Nobody will see this.
Yeah, sure.
We'll cut this part out.
Dude, I went up there and they were talking about how we're gonna fly into New Jersey and then we're gonna catch this train over to New York and we're gonna go here and I was like
that.
How long? We have like 12 hours. Like, it would take an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't realize how close everything was.
If you put it into perspective, so my son's got some like pen pals that he's trying to he's in this thing where he wants to like learn other cultures and language, which I love, right? So he's talking to some of his friends in France right now, and he's all into Texas, by the way. He's committed to Texas now, right?
Yeah.
Like he's from Kentucky, but
He's
now
a Cowboys
he's
fan.
He's a true Cowboys fan, yeah.
yeah. So, but anyway, so we're talking about everything from the Texas economy, which, by the way, would be like the 5th best economy in the country,
Right, yeah.
Or I'm sorry, the world.
The world, yeah.
If you split it up, but the size and stuff, and you talk about the population is like 1/3 of the entire country of France, and so we're talking about all that, and you really get a perspective that you're actually closer. What was it? I think when you're in El Paso, you're closer to the Pacific Ocean than you are to the other end of Texas.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Whoa.
It's crazy. Like it's crazy.
Huh.
Yeah, and I think El Paso is closer to like 6 other state capitals than it is Austin or
Yeah, I
something
remember
like
there
that.
was
crazy.
there was an economic billboard in Dallas when I was a kid that said El Paso, talking about like commutes, like El Paso is closer to LA than it is Dallas or something.
This
This is blowing my mind.
It's crazy if you really look at the gravity of it, and so I think that's why they, Texas, everything's bigger in Texas. So I mean, it really is. I mean, everything is just huge.
Yeah.
But, which provides opportunity for us, when it comes to all kinds of good violations to work and things to do. But completely got off topic there. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
That's kind of it's. I think it's interesting, like where you came from and what you're doing now, though, because you're coming from such a community-driven, close-knit environment,
Yep.
and then you're going to the FBI, and you're kind of charged and challenged to bring together those different communities. Because you look at DFW, and I mean, the amount of different communities and subcultures that we have here is wild.
Yeah, but I'm gonna give some credit where credit is due. Law enforcement relationships in DFW is better than it's as good as anywhere I've ever seen in my career.
Right? Interagency.
Interagency. I mean, the collaboration, the cooperation, this sheer just getting along. Right? It's like it's just I think people of DFW should be, they probably don't even know that, but they should be really, really happy with that. And so it helps us, right? Because we can come in and try to bridge some of these things.
Sure.
And, with working with Grand Prairie, TFOs help a lot, right? And so we're able to kind of work through that. But if not, it's like you guys have something you really want to have some extra resources or maybe just an ability to charge a federal charge that could potentially hold somebody in, in custody longer.
Yeah.
Both short term and long term, then we're able to come in and easily try to seamlessly figure out how we can do that, while not doing what the movies portray, which is us come in and be like, the FBI's here, we're going to do it. We don't do that. I mean, people still think we do that, but we don't do that.
That's what I was thinking, like having an FBI guy available.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what you do, but you could just like come sit with me in the interview, and I can say, you can talk to me or the FBI.
I'm telling you that because and the reason it works is because the leverage of that federal penalty. The federal penalty on I would say most things is just significantly more than it would be on state. Yeah, so it really does help, and we've even heard in interviews we've had where they're like, oh my gosh, that's a federal charge, so that's what we try to leverage. Which where our TFOs come in, that they can do that on their own without even having one of us, right? Because they're part of the family. So it works out.
How does that work specifically, the task force officer program? Like what exactly is that?
We have official task forces that we have. So I'm the ASAC, the Assistant Special Agent in charge over violent crime, crimes against children, human trafficking, our transnational organized crime, which is like some high-level thefts and drug trafficking.
Seems super low stress.
No big deal.
It's not like I don't talk about it every day. Like, I don't know how long I can do this. It's very, very fast paced and a lot of moving parts all the time. But so we have task force. So we, like, for example, we have a violent crimes task force, right? And we have actually one of your guys on our violent crimes task force.
We love Aaron.
Aaron is, I mean, I know this. I mean, this is not an Aaron Love Fest right now, but the dude's awesome.
He is.
And
he is.
He's engaged. He's engaged. He has relationships. He works well with everybody, and he's solely 100% part of our family, right? 100% part of your family, and that's what we want. We want the person that can balance both and not lose touch with the PD or sheriff's office or agency that they work for, and still be able to leverage what we offer, represent us and represent them.
How much of that do you think depends on the culture you create versus the culture that the home department creates?
So I would say that you have to have both. So if Grand Prairie PD didn't allow him to be completely immersed and do the things that he does with us, he wouldn't know all that he knows and have connections and stuff.
Right.
But also it's on us to understand that, the days of just like, oh, he's ours and you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's over, right? You can't do that for a few reasons. For one, PDs don't necessarily have the manpower just to give up people all the time and never get anything back. But really, it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is that they're not connected with what's current right now in that agency, right? And so if they're not connected, then they don't know if there's a commercial robbery that occurs. They could easily go and say, hey, that we can charge that federally,
Right.
And here's what we can do, and here's all that we can offer, because they're not even here to know that it's happening.
Yeah.
So that's really the big thing. You want them to still be connected, still go back, still talk, still be a part of that, and then go back and go to a roll call or something and say, hey, are you guys aware of this resource or this technique? Our threat assessment, threat management team. I mean, we realized that our own folks didn't know as much about it as some of our partners because we don't push it out as much. So I've been pushing that out in some of my meetings, like, hey guys, let's make sure that we're engaging this team when we do this. But we have a lot of cell phone stuff that we do. We have a lot of stuff. I mean, our genetic genealogy investigations that we're doing now is huge.
Seth's part of that now, right?
He is. Yeah, he is. And I know
That sounds fancy. What is that?
Well, it's basically investigative genealogy. So everybody knows about DNA, and so you have DNA that we've worked with for years. We're just developing a unique way to kind of take DNA and try to build out a tree to figure out who could have potentially committed that crime.
So interesting.
It's what I would want to do right now.
So interesting.
If I was still working.
Yeah.
If I was still actually working.
So you're talking about like finding people, like say.
So for example, if you have a a homicide that was committed 30 years ago.
Right.
Well, we did. We just recently had one. I think it's been in the media, correct? So I can briefly, generally talk about. Okay, good. Got the
That's a good thing about not being live. If not, we'll just
We'll cut it down.
So over in Garland, there was a homicide that was, I think, 36 years ago, back in the 80s. It was a pretty bad homicide, stabbing. And so didn't really have an idea. Well, they thought it was, I think, the husband at first. It wasn't the husband. And anyways, they went through all the stuff, but they had a little bit of, they had some DNA that didn't match anybody. And they're like, oh gosh. And so our team's been working with Garland on that for a little while. And so you take that DNA and you're able to kind of compare that with known DNAs, right? And then you're able to say, well, this is the fourth cousin of that person, or something obscure, which actually is a long ways away from people. If you don't realize, like, I used to grow up saying, "Oh, it's my second cousin," right? Well, it's not really your second cousin; it's your first cousin once removed.
Right, yeah.
First cousin twice. Like, I'm learning a lot just from my team telling me, like, "No, that's wrong." I'm like, "Oh, I'm an idiot," you know. And so you take that DNA. What's true? My family would tell you that. But you take that and you build it backwards, and you're creating it backwards until eventually you get it small enough to where you can do it. But the team does the tree building, but the way that you do it is you go and you identify people and you go interview them all over the world if you need to, and you find these people and you talk to them, and then they consent to DNA and stuff like that.
So
That's
cool.
fascinating.
So and it's all through just consensual things that we do with the genealogy or the DNA holder, like, providers that will cooperate with us. So, but it's really, I think it's the next level of what we're doing that's going to be really big.
Yeah.
How much is like the some of the ancestry tests that
It can be very expensive, which is why I think our partners really like that we're involved.
Sure.
Right, because my team will email me and then I'm able to approve it much quicker than maybe you guys would have to go through and do that. And so so we offer the expertise and we offer most of the funding, and then we travel all over to actually do it.
So cool.
It is really cool.
There's been a huge push, I think, in DFW in general, probably outside of DFW, but on the group home stuff. And we have quarterly meetings with OAG's office, VA. But this last week, we had one on Friday, and there was like 10 FBI representatives there. We had some analysts there. Healthcare fraud, financial crimes were there, but that was shocking for us to like start to see that kind of presence of federal organizations involved in these cases, because they are so kind of niche, I think, in how you look at the crime. But that was really cool to see. It really does come across that federally people are really trying to make these connections and get in locally.
I'm glad to hear that, because that's exactly what we hope.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying. The idea would be that we want everyone to know that we're available. Right. Like, and call. I mean, it might be that we can't offer anything, right? And there are times where it's like, man, they've done every single thing you could possibly do, and so then all we can do is try to find that one thing that hasn't been done. But I would say the agencies in DFW are really good.
Yeah.
And so it's us coming in has nothing to do with them not being able to do something. It's usually a resource that we have that we're maybe the best at that we can offer. Like I said, the cell phone stuff, the genealogy stuff, our ERT. Our evidence response team, it comes out and will process like a big scene. BAU. BAU's huge. I mean, when you think of BAU, people think of profilers and stuff, which is true, but we also use them differently as well. When you go to interview somebody, and you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna go interview this person," and you give them a profile of that person, and they kind of work up and say, "Hey, I think this person will respond to this, or respond to that." Yeah. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Taylor Silky at BAU, the analyst over there, she is like, if you like, what's that show? Criminal Minds. She is like the exact like perfect box of what you would think someone does in that show for analysts. It's so cool to hear her talk. She did a presentation when we were at that conference that was pretty cool. There's some interesting stuff that you guys are getting into.
Yeah, it is, and which is honestly the reason the FBI was such an appealing thing to me to begin with, right? Just because you know about it and we do it, and there's just such a reputation with it. It's like, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that?
So how did it work once you got through the academy?
Yep.
Did you get placed in certain roles, or do you like bid for? What is that?
So that's always an exciting time. So about, I think when I went through, it was 7 weeks in.
Okay.
We had orders night, right? Which is so before you do orders night, they give you the list of the 56 field offices. So we have 56 field offices domestically in the FBI. We have maybe another 60 or something internationally. 66, I think. So we're all over the world, right? Those are different roles than what we have here, domestically. But domestically, there's 56 field offices. So they say, hey, rank your field offices where you want to go. 1 being your top choice, all the way to 56, right? And we'll do our best to get you as close to 1 as we can. You know what I mean?
And you list it in reverse.
Right. So we're all like, oh, here and here, and then you're like splitting hairs. Like, here, no, here, I don't want to go there. And so,
what was your 56?
56, I believe, ironically enough, which is probably my favorite city, would be New York.
Oh, okay.
I love New York.
see that.
I love it. My brother lived there for a while. He did his residency in New York, and so I got to visit.
That'll be a lot, though.
My wife loves New York,
there.
but visiting New York as a tourist and enjoying New York is different than living in New York, raising a family in New York. Just the cost, and I had friends in NYPD, and it was just so I knew a lot about that, and I'd been there, and I was like, ugh. I was like, you know what, I could survive in a lot of places. So last choice was New York, right? Number 1 was Los Angeles, which doesn't sound logical, right?
Well,
LA's way
it's less
better.
compact.
So you can find places to live. But the reason I went number 1 isn't because we necessarily want to go to Los Angeles, but back then in the FBI, you had to work in one of the top 5 offices, the large offices, right? And so if you got a small office on your 3-year mark, you're getting moved somewhere else.
Gotcha.
To get out of the way early.
Right, and so our philosophy was, let's just pick one of the big offices that qualifies, that we know we can survive in, right? At an entry level salary and stuff.
Sure.
So we picked LA, thinking, well, there's no way we're not going to LA.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, then orders night comes, and everybody's picking, and like my classmates are getting their envelope and they're opening. It's like LA. I was like, oh my gosh, well, I guess we're all going to LA, right? And then mine got opened, and it was Mobile, Alabama. And I'm like, Mobile, Alabama. And
You're like, what I miss?
And one of my classmates from Mississippi, I love him. One of my classmates, but he had that Mississippi drawl, and he said, and I was obviously surprised and disappointed because I was like, we were prepared to go do this, check the box, and move on, And I'm like, man, I can't believe that. And everybody was shocked. And he said, well, Jeremy. He's like, you got L.A. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, Lower Alabama. And he said, that's the redneck Riviera. He said, we love it going to the redneck Riviera. And I'm like, thanks, bud. That's helpful, But that's exactly what he sounded like. And so, and what he was talking about, redneck Riviera, is that Gulf Shores, Orange Beach area that is
It's a nice area.
An amazing area. The beaches are beautiful.
Yeah.
Water's crystal clear. It's not really crowded. Yeah. He wasn't wrong. It was just a shock. Well, bigger shock was like 4 weeks later, right before my second legal exam, which I'm all stressed out about because, you have to get an 80. A failing score is below 80 at the academy. So, it's like the whole C's get degrees doesn't work there, right? You got to get that B and above. And so we were all stressed and stuff. And my class supervisor kind of pulls me out right before it. Really shouldn't have done it the way that he did it because I was already stressed. He's like, hey, man. It's like, yeah. He's like, I got a call from the ASAC down in Mobile. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. What they say? Yeah, you're going to Montgomery. I'm like, what? Like, yeah. They want you to go to Montgomery, not Mobile. So we've been researching Mobile for a month, and my wife.
And Mobile's cool. Like I liked it.
And my wife was kind of like, "Oh, this will be great." It's not so bad because she was really surprised too. And then I got to make that call after I take this test. I got to make that call and say, "Hey, we're going to Montgomery. Start researching Montgomery."
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it happened for me, and that was common because the field offices. Now I'm on this side of it, I see how we do it. You get the name of who's coming. And you have to figure out where you're going to place them. And so you're looking for the best fit. And so because of my previous law enforcement experience, we tend to put those gals and guys out in our kind of smaller offices because, I mean, right, wrong, it's like I've handled myself for years by myself. Right. I mean, you guys know how it is. I mean, I don't have a team of 12 people to arrest people at a local local law enforcement. I mean, if you're lucky, you have one partner that's there with you, right? And so
That makes sense.
We tend to do that, and so now I know, like, I should have known, right? I'm like, oh, I should have known that was coming. But so we got Montgomery, Alabama, and then the rest of the time in the academy, you're just, you're trying to find a place to live and find a time to get there to look. And so we had to work all that out on like a holiday weekend because I didn't get I didn't get any kind of house hunting trip because I wasn't an ongoing employee. Like I was a new employee, so you don't get that when you first start. Now I do every move, right? But so we found a house, and we come to terms with that we were going to be living in Montgomery, Alabama, and which turned out to be great. I mean, we have great friends down there, and the kids had a great experience. And talking about different, right? We get down there and they're like, "Oh, you're from Kentucky. It's the same." I'm like, "No, it's not. No, it's so different down there, and you grow as a human when you're there, and you really allow yourself to kind of experience all the culture and the people, right? And so we got to do that.
Very cool.
And so that was week 7. So then the rest, the other 13 weeks or whatever was just stressing about me now passing, because I'd already quit my job and I got to pass everything. You don't get injured because then you'll get recycled and have to come back. And so, and then find a place to live.
Now, talking about like the places to live, you having a family, having kids, like I always joke with my wife that if we ever win the lottery, like we're going to Florida. And she's like, no, we're not. Like, our kids' lives are here. Their sports teams are here. Their friends are here. Y'all are routinely moving. How does that? What's that dynamic like with the kiddos?
I would say this: with younger kids, it's very easy. Yeah, they make friends with everybody, right? And they're still friends. Like, I left the house this morning, and our little one, which is 6, was playing a game and talking to our best friends in Alabama. Right, they're 6-year-old. Yeah. So they had never really met. They were both newborns, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, they had never met until we did a trip and and wanted to see him, and so they met us, and we just had lunch. Yeah. And so they met at that moment, but the connection was so strong between us and the family that they become little best friends.
That's cool.
So they're talking, but now he has friends here. He has friends from Alabama. He doesn't. He's too young. From Maryland. But it's not been challenging until this move.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm very open.
And what year was that?
So this was last year.
Oh, okay.
So this has been the most challenging move. I mean, culturally, it's been different. I mean, it's like you said, man. I mean, y'all's driving around here is concerning, to say the least.
And watch Mad Max before you.
And now, and now I have a 15 -year-old that's going to learn to drive here. I'm like, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? Like, who thought this was a good idea? So that part's been challenging.
And then give them all guns.
Right.
Yeah, and then not only that, your GPS is just as confused as you are, because you're like, turn here, and you're like, wait, turn there, because it's so
last
many
month
layers.
That ramp was the other way.
Right. Yes, it's so all of that's been just normal stress, right? But what's been hard is our oldest, we left Kentucky. He was out of middle school, 8th grade. You come here in the summer, get ready to start high school.
Yeah.
So he's starting high school, completely new place, doesn't know anybody. It's a very intimidating, and the high schools are huge. Yeah. Huge. Yeah. And so I think it's just for anybody, I think it'll be very intimidating. He's done really well, and he's adapted, and he really likes it. But that's been, I learned a lot through that to say, okay, we have to really be conscious of that. We moved purposely in the summer, so that way it wouldn't be an interruption with school, which I think is the wrong thing to do. Because if you get there right at the end of school, they're going to at least meet people, start building relationships, and then have the whole summer to foster those relationships. Yeah. And we didn't do that.
Right. That's one of those things you would never know unless you're.
Well, you would think it's better not to do that.
I would.
And so, but I think moving forward, I think we're going to be conscious of all those things, and knowing that as you get older, I think it is a little more challenging. Our middle son is super. He can make friends with anybody, right?
Yeah,
middle child.
He's like, and he's like super confident and stuff. So he probably, and my wife says all the time, she's like, he won't have a problem, But you never know, right? Because I mean, it's just like, I didn't think I would be intimidated going to the FBI Academy, but I was, right? And I didn't think he would have a problem, but he kind of did, and quickly got over that and kind of moved through it. But that is challenging. But I will say this: I think the benefit of the cultural experience outweighs all of that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I would have stayed in Eastern Kentucky, which I love and I still have friends there, you're going to experience this small circle for your entire life.
Sure.
Right? You may go out, you may take vacations, you may do things, and hopefully you're doing some really cool things, but it's really your circle and your people, your comfort zone, right? And I have friends that are there, and they're thriving, and they do great, and and I love it, right? It's just, for me, it was I needed to experience something more, and so I think we're giving them that. They all have, they have friends in Alabama. My second stop was at headquarters. I was in Maryland, and then Northern Kentucky, which kind of got us closer back to like home, which made it harder to leave, by the way. So that was part of the reason this was a hard move, is that we kind of had gotten used to being in that area.
I said, y'all like grandparents and everything still in Kentucky?
All there, yeah. Mine are. My brother lives in Louisville, and my parents are in Eastern Kentucky. And my wife's dad's in St. Louis area. Her mom's in Florida. Her brother's in Western Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So and her grandparents are in North Carolina. So we're kind of used to that life anyways. But giving them the opportunity to understand that people are different culturally, they're different. The upbringings are different. People live differently. Like, they had friends of all different socioeconomic status, all different races, and it's like, so that's very normal to them. Right. It's not normal to every kid.
Right.
Because every kids are used to, you play baseball, right? Yep. They're probably you guys are baseball, they're tight, right? You guys are tight with this community of baseball, and that's who they're going to be used to, and that's what they're going to do. That's just an analogy, of course. But my kids are like, they don't see any difference in kids, which I love.
That's awesome.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't understand. And when they hear people say those things, they're like, I don't understand. Why are you saying that? Because they've experienced it, and they've kids don't see differences either.
You're right.
Well, and especially like culturally, it's so different than it is. People tend to think in our culture, because we feel like we're so connected with social media or TV and whatever, that we're exposed to everything. But it's like, if you actually look at the people around you, they're almost always going to be very similar to you, and you have these ideas of what these other cultures are that are largely based on what other people have told you, whether it's social media or TV or whatever.
Well, and social media has made it even worse, right? Because now our kids think that this is the truth, and it's just like, look, I tell people all the time, like, experience it for yourself. Like, experience people for yourself, and it goes every way too, right? It's like, in law enforcement, you have to overcome a stereotype of being in law enforcement. And that's one thing you guys have to deal with on a daily basis. It's very public. You're in a uniform, marked cruiser, whatever you're going, and there's an immediate, I like them or I don't, good or bad, right? Whatever it is, there's immediate. So you have to overcome that. Fortunately, in the FBI, we're able to. I think we're able to kind of get around that some because we're not so public. I'm out pumping gas. You won't necessarily know who I am. Right. You know what I mean? It's not the same with our local partners, and so I think that part I kind of miss in local law enforcement, because there's that unknown connection kind of at any given time that you can have with a person that might need that connection.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize this. I don't think it gets talked about enough. But the like you're talking about, like different marginalized groups or groups that have been historically discriminated against, and they grow up a certain way. They don't realize, and we don't sometimes either, how much in common we have with one another.
100%.
We are used to that. You walk into a room and someone just looks at you. Based on nothing else besides looking at you. I either like you or I don't. There's a lot of people who experience that for other reasons, whether it's religion or race or socioeconomic status, whatever. So there's a lot of commonality there that people tend to kind of look over.
Well, you know how we overcome that? We talk to people. But we don't talk to people.
Right.
Because we're intimidated by it or whatever. You don't talk to people. So,
and it might be difficult.
Well, it is.
And they might not like you.
Right. Well, that's true, 100%, right? But what I've learned in my experience, it started with the sheriff's office, where I was able to go into communities, non-white communities, and be able to try to build relationships. And I really did develop almost like an internal passion for it. Like this is what I need to do. I need to try to break down some barriers, right? Because I know who I am, right? So I can do that. But in the FBI, it's offered an opportunity to get outside of that bubble and go to Montgomery, Alabama, which, by the way, is the birthplace of civil rights. Right? It was voted the most historic city in the U.S. when I was there, because the Civil War was initiated in Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like the decision to fire on Fort Sumter was actually messaged out from our building in Montgomery, Alabama. Right, the first White House of the Confederacy was there. So all this stuff was in Montgomery, so it was very historic. Well, now you fast forward 100 years, and it was the birthplace of civil rights, right? Because Martin Luther King Jr.'s church was right up the street.
Okay.
Rosa Parks sat on the park bench right outside our office to get on the bus when the boycott started. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. You know, it's just there's so much history there. Like, how does that not move you?
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And so to live in Montgomery, and I tell this openly because to me it was kind of a life-changing moment to see how people live still in the U.S. highlights that we still have a long ways to go.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? And when you see that people choose not to engage with other people because it's too uncomfortable, but yet you never know that you guys are actually your best friends. You know, you don't know it. And so when I moved down there, and I'm friends with anybody, I'm like, yeah, you know what, you're my guy. And so I tell this story. It was a guy down the street, African American man, right, lived down the street, and I would see him at our Dollar General, which is a big deal. Right, it's a big deal in the South. Dollar General.
Yeah, they got cheap beer.
Hey man, like when we bought a house, we're like, oh man, there's a Dollar General. It's gonna hurt the neighborhood. Then we're like, oh my God, I'm so glad we have a Dollar General. And so I would see a Dollar General stand in line, and he had the items in his hand was not for him. Right, the items in my hands were not for me. And I was looking at him like 2 times I saw him. The third time I was like, "Did your wife send you up here?" He goes, "Yeah, yours." I was like, "Yep." Right. So we kind of had a laugh, right? And then a few weeks later, we go out to a restaurant, have my family, and I see him and his family. I'd never met his wife, his kids and stuff, and they're eating. And I'm just like, in that moment, I'm like, you know what? Like, let's break some barriers. This is ridiculous. The whole environment, it just felt ridiculous to me, the way we were doing things, right? And so I went straight over and I was like, hey, can I meet the boss? You know? And so we laughed back and forth, and come to find out she was a teacher, and she would see me running in the neighborhood every morning. And she's like, oh, you're the runner. But I did run back then, y'all. I did. Take a note. And she's like, oh, you're the runner. I was like, yeah, no, I'm. And so I think we got to talking a little bit, and then I told them what I did, and they were really, that was another thing. When you tell people you work for the FBI, everybody's super intrigued, right? It's like, oh, what is it like? Because it's so mysterious, right? And so I don't shy away from it. I try to be very honest and give people perspective, because I think it's just going to help everybody. And so anyway, she's like, can you get him out there to run? He keeps saying he wants to get in shape. I'm like, absolutely. And so he started running with me.
That's so cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And his pace was much slower than mine, so it kind of gave me an excuse not to run that fast.
Say, but that first day he shows up, you're like, please be slow, please be slow.
Oh, he was. He was slow. Anyway, so we would run, but then we would find that we would run not long, because he was still learning, he was still building up to it. But then we'd spend 30 minutes on the side of the road talking. Right, and I was late for work every day, and it was 30 minutes, and it was 45 minutes, and I was like, oh man, and then one day as we're talking, and we started hanging out after and talking about different things, he made a comment that was just striking to me. Right, he goes, all these people probably think this is really weird, and I didn't really know how to take it at first. I was like, what, 2 dudes talking? Like, I don't understand. He said, no. He's like, our friendship. He goes, it's just, you don't do that down here.
That's crazy.
This is in like 2014, 13, 14. And I'm like, what? It was just, in that moment I realized that, man, my real world is not the real world. I grew up in an area where I thought everybody loved everybody. And I realized that we don't communicate, we don't talk, and so we need to do that. And so that's kind of reshaped me forever, to be able to go and now I will have that hard conversation initially, because it's never a hard.
Right.
You have so much in common with people, and so I feel like the FBI has given me that platform to do that. Just to say I work for the FBI gets you an immediate conversation. Right, and then we can talk, and then they realize, wow, man, you're not at all. And I've gotten this so many times in the FBI, like, man, you're not who I thought you would be. And my wife and I are trying to figure out if that's good or bad.
Right.
Not sure.
I get that.
I think probably good.
I get that you don't really seem like a cop to me. I get that quite a bit, which I just take as a compliment.
Because you're personable and you're not, like everybody thinks. But so I use that to be able to try to, I don't know, maybe I guess move on to a passion of mine, which is I think we should reconnect with people. I think there's way too much them and us and them, and let's just reconnect with people. We have a lot more in common, and I think law enforcement, more than anybody, needs that right now. Right, and so
when we're in the place to do it.
100%.
I mean, it's the most. We've been in it, like, not necessarily like as a member of a culture, but you walk into a house That's a completely different world.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens in us out of those four walls, that's one person's or a handful of people's universes that you're getting the opportunity to go into. And then your next call, you're in another one. Most people don't get to do that. They don't
know it.
And I think it's natural because, like, even you talking about approaching the guy at the restaurant, never 100 years. Would I do that?
No.
I think that's that kind of cop.
It is because we're always looking around, right? You're always you're always conscious of what could happen.
Well, you always anticipate the worst.
Worst
Motives. I think so. We also think other people will anticipate the same.
100%. 100%. I've just gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? You get one life.
Yeah.
You get one life, and at the end of that life, let's try to do it. And so my kids have kind of been that way. My wife, we've all kind of understand, and it's just an intriguing thing to see our society and how things are kind of going.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know. For me, it's an exciting opportunity because you talk about going in that one house, and I remember this vividly. I mean, you go in that one house, and it's a chaotic situation. It's the worst day of their life.
Yeah.
If we don't handle it how we need to handle it, that now the worst day of their life now includes me and you. And it's like, oh, that cop. And then now their impression of law enforcement is that.
Cops.
Right. And so I think there's just such a weight on law enforcement in general, particularly local law enforcement, who's going out every day, seeing people every day, or in the community every day. And I just now have an opportunity to try to help. And that's what I try to do. And I also try to build up, I always want to build up local law enforcement all the time. Because we're always asked, think about it, I mean, like if somebody's not happy with what Grand Prairie is doing, what are they going to do? They're going to write somebody or whatever, and they're going to try to get the FBI to come and look at it. Well, yeah, we want to help, but the last thing we want to do is undermine something that you guys are doing. Or at least, I guess we wouldn't undermine it, but the optics would look like we are. Right? And so that's something that we've tried to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and you're uniquely positioned in that, too, coming from a sheriff's office where you're answering calls, you're kicking doors if you have to.
It's been a blessing.
Yeah, that's a really good, because like within law enforcement, when we hear FBI, it's probably a different perspective than what a civilian thinks. We think, oh, those guys, they work in offices.
Yeah, an accountant, I don't know. A lawyer.
Right. No real idea what they do, but I just know those are white collar type guys. So to go in and have that experience of, no, my boots get dirty too.
Yeah, it's really helped me throughout my bureau career connect with law enforcement. I connect with sheriffs really well. Why? Because I know. By the way, there is a distinct difference between a PD and a sheriff's office. Like, and the guys and gals that have retired from one and went to the other, they're like, "Holy cow, I didn't realize it."
Really? See, I know you can tell it is, but I've always kind of been curious.
Well, it's different. I mean, first off, it's an elected official.
That's true.
So that person now has, they have to consider public opinion. They have to consider the way so you have to, you do kind of have to skirt, like, I need to get this done, but I got to do it in a very I
want a job in 4 years. I need.
You know what I'm saying? And so you have all that, but it's just there's a lot of other elements, and they have other responsibilities that unless it's been kind of given to the PD in like a they call it like an urban county government, where it's like you take on that role, which some do. You still have these other little things you do. It's a lot of community service, a lot of community orientated stuff. So I'm able to walk in and kind of have a very honest conversation. And as soon as they hear that my past life was this, it's almost like, okay, we like you, come here.
Even me, just like I said, I knew nothing about you, but once you were in here, we were kind of chatting, like, I come from municipal policing. I was like, okay, cool.
You're like, well, he might not be an a-hole.
Right. Well, that happened. It's like, okay, we have like
something in common.
Something to start with,
Yeah, it's helped me a lot. And so in talking to people, I do often talk about it, like, and that's the thing about the FBI that I think is really, I think it's the most intriguing to me, is like there's not, you don't look at one person and say that's the perfect FBI agent, right? Because we have so many different backgrounds. I mean, in my class years ago, we had a PhD. He had a PhD in psychology, right? So he was like a doctor in psych. So we had that. We had a number of attorneys. We had only probably 5 former law enforcement.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 5 or 6 former military.
Yeah.
But we had people from all walks of life. I mean, one of my best buds was he was a manager at Best Buy.
Oh, cool.
Oh, good.
He had a biology degree, but a manager at Best Buy. And it's so we really do try to just look for the right person. And that background just gives different perspective. And I think that's it. Obviously, accountants, you're going to have accountants. Back in the day, I think attorneys and accountants and former law enforcement was kind of what they were looking for, but a lot of that attorney, I think, because they thought they had that analytical mindset. Sure. What you find is that everybody can have that analytical mindset if they're taught to do that. Right. And so that's kind of what we do. But I like the diversity of it. And we're on a push to be more diverse ourselves, right? Oh, really? I mean, we've always been diverse in background, right? Diversity of background and thought. But I mean, if you look at the FBI, I would say most agents probably resemble me. Right, it just is what it is. And so we're really pushing to become more diverse and become more representative of the people that we are actually serving. And so that I love that.
Because the demographics of the country are changing drastically.
Yeah, drastically. And so we all need to be changing with it. But it's not fair to say an organization isn't diverse because the organization doesn't want to be. What I've found in my career in doing recruiting fairs and stuff is that you hire people that apply. Yep. So the way you become more diverse is you go and you actually talk to the people that represent the community and say, have you ever thought about this? And what I found is most people say, no, I'm not good enough. I could never do that. And you're like, well, why not? You know? And I'm like, well, I got in, you can get in, you know, like, no, I'm sure you have. And I'm like, no, not really. It's about your personality. It's about your drive. It's about your professionalism. It's about your integrity, right? In law enforcement, if you don't have integrity, you have nothing. Yep. You've lost all credibility. You know, if you fudge one thing in one report, right, intentionally, you've lost all credibility. So, which is why in law enforcement, you know, when we see all this stuff going on and people think that we in law enforcement like look out for each other, it's actually quite the opposite.
Oh, it is.
If we find one chink in an armor from somebody, then now we're all like, this person, he's got to go. So I love that about the community in law enforcement, but I do think that we have to be representative. And so as I've told my story, you can tell that's kind of a passion of mine is to help in that regard, to help break down those barriers. And I think I'm proud of the FBI for how we're doing that. But now you got to get boots on the ground to go out and talk to people to get them to dream about it.
Sure.
You know, if you don't have that dream, it's hard to have the drive to do that. And so we're really lucky. We have, and particularly here in FBI Dallas. I mean, you walk down the halls, and we need to have you guys over sometime just to see the office, and do a little tour or something, so that way give you a better perspective too.
I got 2 more years.
There you go. Okay. We'll still be here. But it gives a good perspective to see how well we're doing in Dallas to represent the community. And so a lot more female agents. I mean, when I started, there was very few female agents that I ever worked with. I mean, I think we had one.
There were a lot in Quantico. Yes. I was surprised.
I don't know if you remember what the breakdown is.
It was 50% at the last row.
50-50.
I was very surprised. It was not
50-50.
What I was expecting.
Yeah, no. So I mean, and so that's a huge thing because that means that we now have young girls dreaming about the FBI, right? Or at least at some point in their early career, they're like, someone has told them, hey, this is a good opportunity for you. So it's huge because you're not going to be able to go in and have a connection with a community right away sometimes unless you have representation of that community, right? And I think females largely too. If you have someone that's been victimized by domestic violence or something, right? They might not want to talk to you, right? Because maybe you represent something about that. You know, social work. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they'll talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you can help get them to be comfortable talking to him. And so that's how I've worked my career. Is like you leverage the people that can help, and then once you have a chance to kind of get them to know you, you're good. You know? So yeah, 50-50 is huge. I think we have a goal. I don't remember what the goal is, but I think by 2030. 50-50?
50
by 30.
Oh, 30 by 30.
Okay.
30% female.
Oh, wow. Okay. They're on track. It was interesting walking around and everybody in the academy, when you see someone, it's good morning, ma'am. Hello, good afternoon, ma'am, sir.
Because you don't know who you're talking to, so you don't want to have to go run or do push-ups.
I was like, God, do I need to cover up some grays? Like, do they think I'm old? Like, there's...
No.
Y'all, you're the same age as me.
That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, there was like definitely they had a decorum, a standard about how they present themselves to everybody that was walking around. That was impressive.
Yeah, so so every class, you know, you have a class leader, and then you have like little people that represent certain things, and so it's just something instilled. I mean, if the class leader, you know, if you really understand like if you have any reputation as a class, it better be a positive one. Right. If you get a negative reputation, it's just bad.
Yeah. Well, everybody was very respectful. I accidentally got locked out trying to, where those like pods are at the back where there's like the cardio room and all that.
The cardio and the nurse. And
I went to go run there and I got locked out and my fob wasn't working back where like the DT room doors are.
Yep.
So I got locked out and I'm just like moseying around trying to like unlock doors, and I had one, bless his heart, he comes out. He was trying to be very professional because he didn't know who I was, but I'm sweaty. I just worked out.
You're trying to
like,
break in the FBI.
May I please see? It was, but he handled it very professionally. I was very impressed with him. Bless his heart.
No, I would say it's I'm not gonna say paramilitary, right? Because it's not, but it has elements of that. So like you line up as a class, and you're gonna, you guys, police academies are the same way. I mean, you're gonna jog to the next place outside. Inside, you walk in an orderly fashion, and you get there, and you're just trying to. But what we're all looking for in that moment, which is kind of crazy, because here I left in half of a career, and now I'm starting over as like this newbie, right? It was weird. But all you want is for everyone to recognize your class and say, oh man, that's a really good class. Because of these things. Right? I mean, their performance and all this stuff, but because of their professionalism and stuff. And so that's what everybody strives for, because that's the people we hire.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, that's who we want. We want that person with the type A personality, self-driven, self-motivated. I'm not going to have to tell him every day, hey, go do this, go do this, go do this. You tell him one time what the goal is, or you talk about it, you agree on what, I shouldn't say tell him, you agree on what the goal is, that person's going to accomplish it. Right? That's who you're dealing with there, right? For the most part. Sometimes, you hire people with a little different personality because they have a skill set that you really need. And that's okay. Because, you don't want like just robotic people.
Right.
But it's the personality will lead. And so when I get, you're not you're not what I thought you would be. It's because they have in their mind a very strict, rigid person that they've seen in the movies or whatever.
Sure.
And what they need to know is that we can all be that, but we also need to know when we shouldn't be that. Right? Balance it.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where we are with it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, we get yelled at if we go too long. So we're going to wrap up. But kind of in the same vein of what you're talking about, we always give people kind of the opportunity to I guess, speak to that person who might be considering a role in the FBI. But I guess more so outside your ordinary recruiting role, specifically to law enforcement. With your background, what's something you would have to say to them if they're considering
law enforcement?
If they're considering moving from, say, a municipality or a sheriff's office to a federal role.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is I hope that everybody's in law enforcement's in it for the right reason. Service of people, right? Uphold the laws in service of people, protect people, and stuff like that. And then that box checked, because that's who we want too, right? We want the folks that are motivated properly to do it. I would say for me and my story, as hard as it was to leave the life that I had and the connection to the community and the people, and all of that, I wish I would have done it sooner. So I mean, I waited 9 years to do it. Halfway through a career, so now I'm starting over. It's like I tell people, I was like, man, I feel like I need to retire. What's because I'm 21 years in.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's why. My internal clock's telling me. But I would say, for anything you want to do, understand what you're actually doing.
Sure.
Meaning, I hear people all the time, like at recruiting fairs, and they're like, I want to go into this agency. I won't say, but this agency or that agency, right? And I'm like, that's great. I like absolutely great agencies. I work with them. I like them. But I was like, but do you know what they do?
Right.
And they're like, well, they do this. I was like, well, yeah, partly. But what else do they do?
Yep.
And what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to commit to something, understand what you're committing to. And so I can speak for the FBI. You're committed to an organization that has high integrity, high standards, and a great reputation worldwide, right? But also, you have the ability to do almost anything you want to do in federal law enforcement. I mean, we really cover pretty much every single thing you would want to do. So I think if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for that diversity or the adventure, and be willing to move. I should say
that's
that.
true.
Be willing to move, because so many people want this, but they're not. They're never happy except for here. And I'm like, well, then stay here.
Yeah.
Right, stay here, or go to an agency, a federal agency that will allow you to stay here forever. Right. The FBI is not necessarily that one. It's possible. We have people that have, it is possible, but as we say, the needs of the Bureau, right? Like if there's a need here and you're going to go there.
My wife listens to this and she hears my 2 years comment. She'd be like, nope, you're not applying for anything.
Well, but there are other opportunities other than being an agent.
Yeah.
So we keep that in mind too. So if we're talking strictly agent first for people in law enforcement, which I love because it's my path. That's how I did it. And I also know what you're getting. Mm-hmm. You also know you're getting somebody that the only thing I had to learn at the academy was the way the Bureau needed me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. I tweaked how I shot because they asked me to do it, and I'm a better shot. I was stubborn and I did it. I'm a better shot. I tweaked how the exact wording and way that they want us to arrest somebody, the things we say and how we do it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Defensive attack, all that stuff I knew how to do it. I could drive. All that was the easy stuff. It was more about this stuff like stressing you out was like, how do they want me to do it? I really want to do it their way, right? Yeah. So I would say if you have a desire to kind of move and have a little bit more of a global impact, that's really what it was for me. Like the community impact was great, and I could do that right there all day. But to be able to more freely have impact in other countries, travel the world, which I've gotten to do, and represent the FBI in other countries, it's life-changing. Yeah. So I would say understand that and have that commitment and just know what it's going to mean before you do it. Right. And then don't overthink it. Yeah. I think I was overthinking it. Like, I'm not ready. Right. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. No, I'm not ready, And then I got married. I'm like, okay, well, I got to consider this. And we had a child. I was like, I got to consider this. And then looking back on it, I'm like, I turned 35 at the academy. Yeah. I mean, I'm 12 years in, but I'm an old 12-year vet, right? And so, I think that's the thing. So it limits the amount of career that I can have in the organization, which does speed up some of the things you have to do. I would have probably stayed longer in my other stops if I could have. Right. But in order to kind of achieve what the goals are, you have to kind of stay on that schedule. Yeah. And so, that's kind of what I would say is like understand what it is, understand what you want to do, and then just figure out the best way to do it. Yeah. And for our local partners, I would say get involved with the FBI locally. Right. Like get involved, talk to people.
Which a lot of people probably don't realize is an option.
They don't. I mean, the TFO relationship is great, but that requires the PD, your chief, and everybody to allow you to do it. You can get informally involved. I mean, you're involved with the BAU stuff, right? Probably on a formal level now, I would think. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, you can do that informally first. Right. You can work with us on different cases and stuff initially, and that's actually how we get TFOs. Because we might work with you on a violent crime case, and then everybody's like, "Ooh, man, that's a good one." Right. And now we're working our angles to be like, "Hey, if you ever want a TFO, this is one we would love to have." And so. But you learn about the organization before you ever join it, right? And for young folks, our college internship program it's a must. It's an honors internship program. The only requirement is a 3.0, I think. Oh wow, okay. GPA, so you got to have like a B average. Yeah. Don't quote me on it. There's a certain grade point average you have to have, and you have to be going back to college after that summer. Okay. So like you can't graduate in May, and then, but it creates great opportunity for you to get to see everything, and we let you see it all. You're part of the family. Yeah. And then if there's an opportunity to hire you right out of college, we try to do that if there's opportunities. But we get to know you, you get to know the organization, and you decide if that's what you want to do. Right. So that to me is the first step of somebody in college. Right. But other than that, my only regret, and I tell this to people all the time, is that I feel like I could have done it sooner. Yeah. Sure. I feel like it would have been easier to do it sooner. Because I wouldn't have had the emotional
That's the benefit of hindsight. And once you realize the decision was the right call, I think we always tend to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So you just make the best of it and power on and try to make an impact. That's really what I'm wanting to do.
Well, it sounds like you're in the right spot.
I hope so.
We appreciate it, man. Yeah. First time talking to an FBI agent. Yeah. Not in trouble. It's pretty awesome.
Not in trouble. I like that. Yeah. Well, we're right. We're not far.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not far, and we'll set it up. Maybe Aaron can bring you guys over.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
It'd be really set up for Aaron to bring you guys over, and you get to see and just see the magic and the IGG stuff. Where we do that stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be very cool.
Yeah, we'll set it up.
Awesome, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, till next time.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.